What's happening, everyone? JayShockblast here, and today we're going to talk about the top 10 costumes I would like to see in Marvel's Spider-Man through DLC. So the thing is that we've got 28 suits already, and we've seen lots of Spider-Man suits in the previous games by Beanox and other companies. So we've seen quite a bit of suits as Spider-Man, and I'm going to be honest with you, I didn't realize that he didn't have nearly as many suits as I thought he did. So I kind of took an interesting approach here, and I don't know if Insomniac is going to follow suit, but I've got a couple ideas that I think would be interesting, and we'll see what happens. This is kind of like a dream scenario. I don't expect maybe any of these to get picked, maybe one, but we'll see. So the thing is, and I'll explain this as we go along, some of these would actually be pretty cool and unique if the DLC incorporated what they were doing. They could theoretically develop new suits specifically for the game, and I'm not going to lie, I wouldn't be opposed to that, considering what the advanced suit did. So let's just get right into it. Now, for those of you that don't know, there is a book that's out right now that was a prequel to Spider-Man, called Hostile Takeover by David Liss. And one of the characters that we run into, and this is a spoiler if you haven't actually read the book yet, so I apologize, but one of the characters we run into is a character named Michael Bingham, who happens to be the Blood Spider. He thinks he's Spider-Man and that Peter Parker is the false Spider-Man. And in the comics, he was trained by Taskmaster, who, again, spoiler, we do see in the game. And he was sort of supposed to be a member of the evil Avengers with Jagged Bow and Death Shield, who were supposed to be Hawkeye and Captain America. So, this would definitely be an interesting suit to add into the game. Maybe they do have like a prequel DLC where you actually end up fighting Blood Spider. And maybe they incorporate Echo. One of my disappointments in this game, and there are very few, is that we don't really run into many other characters that are kind of like on our side. So that would have been really cool if they did have kind of a tangle with Blood Spider and Echo being a part of it. So Blood Spider is definitely a character I think would be pretty cool to see as a costume. So that is my number 10. At number 9, I'm going to be honest, I thought about not including this on my list because I don't think it's necessarily feasible. And we have SP//DR. It's kind of like the robot version of Spider. It's a robot. And if you've seen any of the covers for Spider-Gwen that's coming up, it's one of the covers of that, of one of the comics. And I think it'd be pretty cool to incorporate this robotic version, like exosuit of Spider-Man into the game. I don't know how they would do it. I don't know, because a lot of these costumes at least follow, the proper form, and they're not like any bigger or smaller. And I picture this version being a little bit bigger. So I don't know, again, if it's feasible, but I still think it would be awesome, and it's something we haven't seen in a Spider-Man game before. So that would be my number 9 choice. I'll be honest, again, this is part of the reason why I left off, Peter Porker, Spider-Ham. I thought Spider-Ham would be kind of cool too, but again, Spider-Ham's so small, I don't know if that really is going to work, and it could be the same case here. At number 8, we have the Mangaverse version of Spider-Man, and this I do think is plausible. I know it doesn't appear that he's quite as big as normal Spider-Man, but that vintage comic version of the suit just absolutely inspired me. I would love to see the Mangaverse version of Spider-Man in here and see how cool that would look. I really kind of picture it, again, being very cartoony, and that's what I mean, the vintage suit is making, it might be the best actual skin in any game ever. Like the way that it blends in with the game, the way that it just contrasts and everything. I can't stop talking about how much I love that suit. And I kind of feel like the Mangaverse version of Spider-Man would kind of make us feel something similar. I'm not trying to like, go back to the well too much, but I really think that would be a fun suit. Now this is where things start to turn a little bit, because I'm abandoning Peter Parker suits altogether right now. At number 7, we have Spider-Woman. Now, here's the thing. Every single one of these suits from here on out are characters that are similar to Spider-Man, but not quite Spider-Man. And I think we could, suspend disbelief into just having the suit in there, having the powers be similar, and just dealing with it. Maybe they have to do a little bit more to make these suits a little bit, compatible with the actual character, but I digress. Spider-Woman, I feel, is close enough. Jessica Drew is great. I think her newest version of her suit is just spectacular. I love it, and I really think it would be a natural progression to have Spider-Woman be able to float through the city. Now, obviously, the downside of having a female character is, you might have to do some voiceover, stuff like that. And one of the great things about playing the game with Peter Parker is they have so many, lines that he says just on a whim. And, you might be sacrificing having that in order to do any of these characters moving forward. But I think it's worth it because it's just different enough where you're going to have a fun time playing as some really cool characters. At number 6, we have the Prowler. And Prowler we're going to see in Into the Spider-Verse, or whatever the cartoon is. I think it's called Into the Spider-Verse, which mostly stars Miles. Prowler, the Mark IV suit, I believe. One of the newer suits in the game. That is a suit that Prowler has actually worn to make it look like Peter Parker's not Spider-Man, so that both of them can be spotted at different places at the same time. So it makes sense that Prowler would be able to use some of the Spider-Man powers, even if it's in his own suit. I think it'd be really cool because, again, it's another character, that has and can use the Spider-Man style powers. Not necessarily all of them match up, but I think it's close enough, and it would just be cool to be able to play the game as if you're somebody else too. At number 5, this, I think, honestly, if it weren't for the fact that I love the 4 ahead of it that much more, number 5 would probably have been my number 1, and that is Miles Morales himself. Now, one of the DLC ideas that I have is, obviously, again, spoiler alert if you haven't finished the game, at the end we see Miles becoming the Miles we know from the comics. A good DLC would be that you actually play as Miles Morales as Spider-Man, and with that, Peter is he's the protege to Peter, and we actually play as Miles in this game. Why not actually go full Spider-Man with him and do a nice DLC featuring Miles Morales? I think that is the most likely thing to happen in all of my ideas, and I think everybody across the board would be down for that. So at number 5, Miles Morales. At number 4, possibly something similar, Spider-Gwen. I love Spider-Gwen. I think she's awesome. And again, I understand that maybe we have to sacrifice some, voiceover stuff in order to do it, because you can't, I don't expect them to go bring in another voice actor just to do one costume in the game. But, I would love to, swing around New York City with Spider-Gwen. I think it would be a great idea, and I would, again, it's perfect. An opportunity to have, another suit that is actually another character that makes you feel like you're playing a whole new game with a whole new person. So that's my number 4, Spider-Gwen. At number 3, I think this is a possibility. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but we have the new Infinity Warps coming out soon, and one of the characters is ArachKnight. It is a combination of Spider-Man and Moon Knight, and I don't see why we can't have that as a costume in the game. It might have to be a DLC a couple months down the road because they had to start on it late, but ArachKnight looks awesome, and I'm so excited to see what this whole Infinity Warps thing is all about. ArachKnight is already in Marvel Future Fight, So it's really not out of the realm of possibility to consider that this might be a thing that we can do. So that is definitely, I think, possibly the second most likely on my list, maybe third most likely. I think we have a decent shot at Mangaverse and Miles Morales, but ArachKnight is pretty close. At number 2, I've seen so many people say they would love to see this character get their own video game, and I think that's a horrible idea. Number 2, I have Daredevil. Daredevil doesn't have all the spider powers, and maybe they have to enhance it a little bit to incorporate his billy clubs and stuff like that. But I will say he does swing around with his billy clubs and stuff, so at least the swinging animation is not that ridiculous for him. And I think it would be a great opportunity if they were ever going to do a realistic quote-unquote Daredevil video game. He's blind, and you can't, it's hard to, like, for me anyway, to picture them doing Daredevil any justice if you're not watching in, like, sonar. And that just wouldn't be an interesting game to me. I don't think Daredevil is a good choice as, like, this type of a video game, because it doesn't feel right if you can basically see everything you're doing. Like, you would have to play the game as Daredevil, and I don't know if that's something I would really want to see. So having him in here, a nice little compromise, I think. I don't think it's going to happen, obviously, but it would be cool. And even less likely is my number 1. And honestly, for a lot of people, I think a lot of people would rather Daredevil more than this character, but I prefer Moon Knight a little bit more. So at number 1, it's Moon Knight. Again, another character that has sort of similar, not abilities, but like he swings around. He's got the ability to swing around just like Daredevil, and I think that would work out pretty well. Again, you have to suspend disbelief a little bit, and maybe they make it like an enhanced character where a couple of the gadgets change, or there's a couple gadgets that they introduce that are basically just for them. I don't think it's that ridiculous, and I think it actually would make things really interesting if playing Spider-Man as a Moon Knight, as a Daredevil, as Spider-Gwen, all of those things would be pretty cool. So instead of going crazy, including suits that have already been in games before, I decided, why not? Let's roll the dice. Let's make it interesting. I think the Miles Morales idea is pretty cool, if you ask me, having a DLC around Miles. And yeah, I'd love to know what you guys think. Are there suits that you would love to see in the game? It would have been really easy to see like the Captain Universe costume, or any of that type of stuff. The Kane Spider-Man or Scarlet Spider costume. There's a lot of costumes that have already been done. I kind of thought about Six-Armed Spider-Man. We've seen those, and I kind of want to see something different. And I think this would make the game just that much cooler to kind of go through and play as all those characters. Again, I would sacrifice any voice acting necessary, whatever it may be. I think this would be pretty dope. So what do you guys think? What suits do you want to see in Spider-Man as part of the DLCs? I hope you guys enjoy the video, and we'll see you.